Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to another impromptu video on Back of the Net. And Saturday always seems to be news day, doesn't it? The news has come out today. It's not been officially announced, but Chris Temple and other journalists have been tweeting that AFC Bournemouth have reluctantly accepted an £18.5 million bid from Sheffield United for goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. Now, in this video, we're going to be, discussing the whys and what fors with regards to that move. We're going to be talking to Sheffield United fans. I'm sure they know through seeing him in the Premier League about what he will offer them. But what's happening in the grand scheme of things at AFC Bournemouth? Because they said there wasn't going to be a fire sale. Is this one? We don't quite know. With me is Jeff Hayward. Jeff, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you.
Good stuff. Paul Kenward's here as well. Paul, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Sam.
And Morgan Scott as well. Morgan, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good stuff. Jeff, then, first thoughts as you see this news come out this afternoon?
Pretty depressing. I think when they had the first bid rejected and I saw they bought a Turkish goalkeeper, then maybe their interest might have passed, but obviously not. And it's disappointing. It is worrying, I think, for other players who might be in line. Hopefully we'll hold on to more, but a bit disappointed. Rambo was a star player for us last year and a man for the future.
In terms of the valuation, Paul, 18.5 million or whatever, there was a sell-on clause, but because it was from Sheffield United, that's been absorbed. For a small championship club, post-coronavirus climate, is it a bad fee, or do you think we still should have looked for more? Because other people are comparing a lot of goalkeeper sort of transfer fees before coronavirus, so maybe it's unfair to compare.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think because of the sell-on, it all got a bit skewed. So the £18.5 million offered, that works out about probably 24 million if you took out the 25%. So not quite sure where we go, from a valuation point of view. I don't know what their first offer was.
Yeah, I think it was around £12 million or so, but yeah, then they've upped it to 18.5. Morgan, first thoughts this Saturday afternoon?
Well, Saturday seems, as you mentioned, to be a news day, doesn't it, for AFC Bournemouth? So yeah. Over 2 weeks ago, we had the Eddie Howe news that he left the club with mutual consent. And then last week, we had Jason Tindall appointed. And then today, Aaron Ramsdale has accepted a move to Sheffield United. So, at the end of the day, we just have to... I wasn't surprised this was going to happen. He's based up in Sheffield and stuff. So this was going to happen at some point. And to be honest with you, maybe it's beneficial that it's happening before the players are back for pre-season. He made up his mind, and his agent and the club have decided that it's the best move for him. So, in my opinion, we need a good set of players. Obviously I'm devastated. He's been in the club for years, but we need to start fresh, and we need people to get us back up to the top flight of English football. So maybe it's best for everyone that he does move, but obviously gutted for the lad, and I wish him all the best.
We've also got Ben Phillips as well, who's just joined the screen. Ben, hope you're doing well today, but Saturday is news day, and it's one of the players that's been considered part of the spine of AFC Bournemouth that has not yet left the club, but looks as though he will. How are you feeling?
I kind of knew it was going to come, but I kind of didn't. So I thought Rambo was too good for the championship. But then so if you were watching, obviously you all were, throughout the season, and the kind of passion that he had for the club, I thought he was going to stay because of that. But then obviously big money move came in from Sheffield United, and I don't blame us for accepting it. So yeah, I'm gutted, but I was expecting it.
Can you really blame him, Jeff? A guy that obviously has designs on getting the first, top spot for England, arguably could make the England the Euro 2021, or I think it's going to be still branded Euro 2020, but it's going to be played next year. He could be in it, and arguably at Bournemouth, he wouldn't have as big an opportunity to actually make that squad. And for his own personal career, and also his family are up north as well, you can see why he might have wanted the move back, you could say.
Yeah, completely understandable. I think for his personal career, I think he's got every chance of taking Pickford's place next season. So he does need to be playing Premier League football, and I don't blame him at all. I mean, he gave us sterling service last season. Was unlucky to be playing in a relegation season. I mean, he had plenty of practice, so you know he's actually proven himself to be a quality goalkeeper. He ought to be playing Premier League, and good luck to him. I think we've got a replacement possibly in Travers. I'm sure we'll talk about who could do with a regular first team football as well. So it's not complete doom and gloom, but it's disappointing, and I think it's more worrying in what does it say about other offers that might come in for other players, and will we take them or won't we? And that's a concern.
And Paul, does this, other players who might be looking to sign for the club might be seeing this as almost like a statement of intent, but completely opposite of what we wanted. With Ramsdale, one of the ones that we feared less, because obviously we're thinking Josh King, of course, Nathan Ake went, Callum Wilson, and we're looking at certain midfielders like Jefferson Lerma, maybe David Brooks, but we all thought that Ramsdale might be one to stay. However, he's not. So do you think within the squad, it might be making other squad members' ears prick up and think, hang on a sec, this is the way things are going?
I think for me, the biggest concern is the fact that it looks like Aaron has made the decision that he wants to leave, rather than the club saying, off you go, son, we don't want you anymore. It's the other way around, I think. That's why the reluctantly in the inverted commas at the top, it really is a worry for me that other players will see this and they'll say, actually, I wonder if my agent can get me a move if I tell the club that I don't want to be here anymore. I think that's my biggest concern, is that we could lose more players. It will not be a fire sale necessarily, because we will want a good valuation for each player, but I think we could be looking at quite a large number of our best players going now.
And that's the scary thing, and I think that it's going to be a busy news week. I'm absolutely certain. Now, Morgan, 18.5 million. We've talked about whether it's valuable or not. Could you argue that this is maybe a good time to sell for the club? Because let's say we don't finish in the promotion spots and we finish a mid-table club. Arguably, his value will go down, and we might be sort of kicking ourselves that we lost a top-class keeper in a year's time for, say, 10 million. We've cashed in early. Maybe we should have done that with people like Ryan Fraser, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's kind of that's a very, very good point. I think the fact that we didn't get much out of Ryan Fraser, in terms of finance, but you look at obviously the 18.5 million, obviously if it does go through, we're still not 100%, but I'm sure there shouldn't be too many problems with it going through. But yeah, in terms of you got 18.5 million for that. I think the Nathan Ake was 41 million. So you're looking at that. That's almost like quick mental maths, like 58, 60 million pounds. For two players. That could really prove the difference of keeping AFC Bournemouth. You look at a lot of teams, obviously with the Convener rival. Your top teams like Arsenal. I think they got rid of like 500 staff the other day with cuts and stuff because obviously the world and the economy. So this could Bournemouth could easily crash, and they need finances, and with not being in the best top of English football, this 60 million pounds, and then you look at more, if you get between Brooks, Wilson and Josh King, you could maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but another 60 million, that's 120 million, and that could rebuild our squad and keep money in the bank. So fair play that this is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, Ben, I'll come to you to talk about Mark Travers in a minute. But Jeff, in terms of this money that we've got now through, I mean, obviously the deal's not gone through, but it looks like it will. 60 million pounds in the bank. I think it's now really important to know how that money is going to be spent? Is it going to be just like serving to repay the debt that Maxim is apparently owed, or will it go towards some, facilities like the rest of the money for the training ground, or will it be reinvested? I think we need to see some kind of incoming signings because, well, certainly a goalkeeper, but given the fact that Callum Wilson and Josh King will probably be on their way, we're looking short in many departments. And whilst Paul touched on the players within the squad already that are going to have their ears pricked up and see like, okay, he's gone now. Also, the players that want to come in also want to see the club that they could be playing for making some signings that back up the original statement of intent from Maxim a couple of weeks ago that said we are committed to getting us back in the Premier League.
Completely. I think the ambition of the club is on the line here. We need to see exactly where that money is going to go, where the investment is going to come in, and we do need strengthening. I mean, it's pretty clear from last season, and certainly with Ake going, that the back four needs some work. Who's going to be back up to Travers, who presumably will take Rambo's place. Plus, I think just generally the squad needs a greater depth. I mean, 46 games in the Championship is no, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be times when we're put under pressure, and we need to see that ambition that's going to take us back to the Premier League.
Would it be fair to say, Paul, that the gamble on promotion, this maybe looks as if there's less of a gamble and it's going to be a bit more calculated this time? Because you would think if there is a gamble, we would be fighting tooth and nail to keep these kind of players. Maybe not Nathan Ake because he is world class. Ramsdale might head towards the world class category, but there are other players that you could be thinking, well, we need to be keeping them, and if we do for one season, then we've got a great chance to get back into the Premier League. But it strikes me as a board that are making less of those kind of risky decisions and just think almost money in the bank is a better position to be in.
Yeah, it's a fine balancing act, isn't it? Keeping your decent players versus getting some decent money for them at the moment. Your biggest problem is convincing the players that to stay. What have they got to stay for? We're a Championship club now. We aren't Premier League. We've got a outside chance of Premier League next season, but they'll have to work really hard to get there. Whereas they could just have a move to a club that's already there, and then they don't have to fight. So and we're offering less wages probably as well because of the relegation clauses in their contract. So I think we're on to a hiding to nothing really. Trying to keep a lot of these decent players, your Brookses and your Lewis Cooks and some of the fringe players that you thought maybe might stay, your sort of Billing and Lerma. I can see us getting rid of all of them just because offers come in and the player then turns around and says, I want to go. What do? Do you keep hold of them and have another Fraser situation on your hands where they just don't try? It's really hard decision certainly for the board.
And I mean, you know what? We've got a goalkeeper that has proved himself on a couple of occasions. And Ben, do you remember at the start of this season, as fans, we knew that Boric, it seemed to be that Eddie was suggesting that let's promote the youth and it's going to be a case of, okay, Ramsdale or Travers. And, until the first game, we weren't sure which way he was going to go with this. And he went with Ramsdale. But when Travers played last season, he obviously had a complete blinder. Let's not forget that it took Ramsdale 36 games to save one penalty. Travers did 3 in the same game, albeit in a penalty shootout. So that's a very unfair comparison. But with Travers, we've got a goalkeeper that arguably could be as highly rated as Ramsdale is, and he's younger as well, Ben.
Yeah, I think that if he plays the 46 games or maybe a few less than that, and he gets a lot of experience against, albeit some good teams in the Championship, I think he could turn into someone maybe even better than Ramsdale, because against Tottenham when he played season before last and against Forest Green in the Carabao Cup, he looked really good, and he looked kind of like he didn't have as many mistakes in him as Rambo, because he's had a few this season. So yeah, I think some Bournemouth fans have been a little bit like, oh, what are we going to do? Travers isn't as good, but he hasn't really had a chance to prove himself as to be Ramsdale's level because he hasn't played as much.
And you know what? There are other people talking about certain goalkeepers. I mean, I know that Jack Butland has been mentioned on Twitter, and there have been some other people like, well, at least we've got Begovic. I mean, surely to God, his wage demands are way too big. And has he really proved himself in the goalkeeping jersey for AFC Bournemouth? I don't think so. Artur Boruc has gone. It's really important that some signings are made quickly. But what are your thoughts on Jack Butland, Ben?
I think that he's a good keeper. I think that when Stoke were in the Premier League, he did look really good. But now there was a lot of hype around him, like saying, "Oh, he's really good. He's going to be England's number one." And then since Stoke became kind of a fairly mid-table Championship team, all of the talk about him has died down. But I've seen a few of Stoke's games this season, and he has looked really, really good. So I think, not talking about like the wage and stuff, I think he could suit us quite well, and getting that little bit of experience as well, seeing as he's been playing for quite a long time, I think he could be quite good for us.
Yeah, and now Jeff, I understand you've got to go, but in terms of what you want to be seeing over the next few weeks from the club, because I don't know about you, relegation was obviously a huge blow, but we felt good by the statement of intent from Max about getting into the Premier League. Eddie went, which was dreadful, and then ever since then, we've been very nonplussed by what's been happening. Obviously, it was a blow to lose Nathan Ake, but it was inevitable. Aaron Ramsdale less so. How do you want it to pan out over the next few weeks, and what would give you some optimism again? Because for me, it's low. I wouldn't say it's rock bottom, but it's very low right now.
Yeah, I think I'm resigned like you to losing King and to losing Callum Wilson. But I think what we've got to remember is that the players return for training on Monday. Short turnaround. Let's see some signings. Let's see some energy, and let's get a sense of the club going forwards, rather than a kind of it feels a bit like a slow death at the moment. So I want to see some positivity coming out from the club. I'm sure there will be. Travers will be the goalkeeper. I'm pretty sure of that next season. Irrespective of the transfer talk, I think the priority will be strengthen the outfield players rather than replace Ramsdale with somebody from outside. So let's see some positive thinking, club, and we want to pull together. We want to look forward to the Championship, not to feel depressed about whether we're going to be mid-table or worse.
Brilliant, and it'd be nice to have an assistant manager. Maybe we'll get something named very soon. But Jeff Hayward, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, guys.
See you, Jeff.
And speaking of assistant manager, Paul, I'll come to you next, because obviously there's no news, and a lot of people consider that to be very strange, that it's been so long, and a lot of people have got conspiracy theories like, why are the others hanging around? Are they almost waiting to see what Eddie's going to do? What are your thoughts on it? Because it seems like it was going to be purchased, but you'd think surely they would have announced it, but not the case.
Yeah, it's a bit curious, isn't it? The fact that they've not announced anything at the moment either means that they're still thrashing out new contracts maybe for them, or maybe they've got some external candidates they're looking at. I don't know. It's possible, I suppose, that JT might want somebody external as well, or if he promotes internally, you want to replace that person. So there's that possibility as well. I think maybe the club are trying to save it all up as some sort of positive post. But at the moment, as you say, the negativity is creeping in. Twitter has turned to a toxic place at times, especially with announcements like today. I'd like to see something positive come out of the club other than, look, these are the previous managers we've had who've been players, which has come out today, which that's great. We know that. We've been following them for donkey's years, so we know all of what we have achieved in the past. It's what we can achieve in the future that we want to know, and we want to know who's going to be helping JT up top.
So we're keen on representing all of AFC Bournemouth fans' opinions, and Kirk Tovey is one of them. Sometimes comes up with some controversial views and liked by some, not by others. So I'm going to read a couple of his thoughts as well, just to add a bit of balance. He said, what the hell is going on? Honestly, is it that bad behind the scenes that we are selling Rambo for 18.5 million? Wow, he's worth double that, if not for sale at all. The club need to start being open and honest. very good thought. And I know that Morgan, you are an admirer of Kirk for his clarity of thought, and you've branded him Bournemouth's version of Gary Neville. But you've got to say, at this point in time, it's maybe a bit easier to see things on both sides, because I mean, I'm an optimist. I don't really want to be in the know and hear stuff behind the scenes, but I get sent it all the time. Whether I believe it or not, I'm not sure. But sometimes when you've got these little voices in your ear and you see stories like that, you start to think, oh, you know what, maybe they're right. So do you think there is more than meets the eye to this, or is it just a case of a goalkeeper wants to play for England, wants to play for his hometown club, his family are up north, it's a move that makes sense for everyone?
Well, yeah, like, you know, he's going to want to be up with his family if he can. You know, that's always, you know, probably top of his agenda as well. But more so, he isn't going to get to play for England's first team in the Championship. That just won't happen. You know, you look at people like Jack Butland that we mentioned previously and other people. So I think that's... Kirk is kind of right in what he's saying. I think maybe we could have offered him maybe another 10 million or so, maybe get it up to maybe 35 million pound, because I think he's that good in my opinion. I think what he's done for AFC Bournemouth since he's come in and made his debut is actually quite remarkable. And we'll talk about do you know the penalty that he saved against Southampton? No, it was a terrible penalty by any means. Yeah. But the fact that he saved that penalty gave us a hope on the final day. And you saw him after the Everton game, and he sat there, and out of everyone I saw on that pitch, apart from Eddie, he looked the most devastated. Now, he's 22 years of age, and he looked the most devastated. Some of the other players, like Callum Wilson, thought, oh, I'll see you later. You know, I didn't care. And that kind of hurt. And to see Aaron Ramsdale with that emotion and fight and determination. And there was another, I can't remember who, because VAR kind of like mucks us up so many times this season, but there was... he was running outside SD against one of our final home games of the season. Yeah, I remember that. And that's just and like I can't remember. It'd be sorry, I can't remember who it was against. But the fact that he did that, and then you saw how upset he was at the final whistle. Again, showing the emotion and the determination, and like the fact that he wanted to be a part of AFC Bournemouth and do the best for them. And compared to some of the other players, and I'm not saying all the other players don't care, because they obviously do, but he was the only one, apart from Eddie, that seemed to kind of want to be there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, Ben, do you think it's always a bit more painful when you lose a player that seems to have a connection with the club? Because, like you say, you know, he comes out in his interviews and he looks genuinely pained and he celebrates like he's a fan. He even sat in the North Stand against Watford to, albeit, see us lose 3-0. But he is a player that's connected with us, and I don't think AFC Bournemouth fans will begrudge his move by any stretch of the imagination, not least because of the fact that we bought him for what, less than $1 million, and now we've sold him for minimum 18 times that. Yeah, I think it could be a surprise to some people, like seeing his passion and his commitment to the club. And I think there will be some people who have the views of like, oh, was it all fake, that him celebrating so hard for him to just go and move when we get relegated? But I think that it's the right move for him. And I think that even though he's been really committed to the club and everything like that, I think if he wants to go forward in his career, then it's the right move for him. And maybe if he has a few good seasons at Sheffield United, seeing as they look like, albeit a top half side, even though they've been in the Premier League for only a season, then it could be a start of something big for him. So for any Sheffield United fans, Ben, that are watching, obviously they will watch the Premier League week in, week out. So we're probably already telling them what they know. We're preaching to the converted somewhat, but tell them what Aaron Ramsdale offers. What do you think are his qualities? And if there are any weaknesses, what do you think they are? I think that Ramsdale, he can be a true leader because he can give players a kick up the backside if they're not putting in the work rate, and he can be, giving someone a high five if they've done something good. And he is a really good shot stopper, and he's agile, and he's pulled off some incredible saves this season. And I think maybe his only weakness could be his distribution of the ball. I think it can sometimes get us into a bit of a pickle.
I've seen it a few times, but he's only young, so it's minor things that can be cut out at big football clubs under good coaches. So yeah, I think he's one for the future, definitely.
And Paul, I don't know if you saw the videos that myself and Tom Jordan did with the player ratings. We've now got 2 of our God players, God rated, have left the club. And, there are a few sort of above average rated players that are still in there. But I'm really worried about what's going to happen in the next few weeks now, because there don't seem to be any rumblings of any incomings. It's all the other way right now.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what JT is thinking at the moment, because he's just been told that, we're going to keep the young nucleus of the squad and you're going to try our best to, build it around these young players. And immediately within a week, one of them's gone. I think, as I say, your rating system is pretty much everyone's shopping list, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
We are not having a fire sale. We've been told, there's no fire sale, but what constitutes a fire sale? Is it a lot of players going, or is it players going for cheap? That's the thing, isn't it?
Go on, Morgan.
Yes, Morgan. Yeah.
I think the interesting one is going to be the David Brooks. I think that's going to be the most interesting one out of people like Callum Wilson and Josh King.
It certainly is now, considering they're best mates. So it's kind of, there's even more concern now. But, I've heard rumours, Morgan, of like David Brooks, 35 million. I'd probably take that. I'd probably take that for him. I don't know about you. Is there a figure that you think, yeah, I'd let him go or keep him at all costs?
I disagree. To be honest with you, I don't understand. And it's going to be hard for him not to, but I think that considering that he's been out for a season, and when he came back, he had that arm and he looked quite mentally tired because, it wouldn't, he at the lockdown, he was fit again and then he had to, go and just go on a bike or go for a run or whatever. I think, in my opinion, I think he should give us one more season and then try and move. Because from what we saw of him, although he got a goal against City and he made a difference when he came on with Callum Wilson, he still doesn't look match sharp. Now, why would he want to go to a club like Man City or Liverpool or Man U or whatever and go and sit on their bench when he could be at Bournemouth, prove himself for another season and then make the big move? Because right now, I don't think he would get a start in a main team compared to Bournemouth's when next season, when he's proved himself, got a few more goals, bit more experience, because he's only, 22, 23, and then he can make that move. And to give Bournemouth another season, I think would be the right thing, personally, for him to do.
So, Ben, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry. Rather than European football, you were saying all of the teams that are in Europe next season, you don't think Brooks would want to be in Europe? You don't think he'd want to get double the money he's getting at the moment? I mean, it's unrealistic to expect players to want to stay at Bournemouth when Premier League teams come in for them.
That's a good point, but to be honest with you, with all due respect, I think he would know that he's not at the best of that he can offer right now. And in my opinion, from seeing the last 6-7 games of when he did feature, I don't think he would be able to get more than maybe 5 minutes at the end of a game in a Europe and the Champions League or the Europa League, because I don't think he's that good yet. I think he's got the potential to be that good, but right now, the Prem is the best. The Prem is the best. I think in the Championship, he could be one of the best Championship players we ever seen. So I think the difference of him playing in the Championship comparing him playing against people like Real Madrid, Barcelona, I think that's a massive difference of football. And I think he's still quite young. And I think he still could do with more development.
I think it does also depend greatly on the player. I mean, if Brooks is happy to go to a club where he's going to get nurtured, where he'll get the focus that he needs, because we used to do that with Eddie Howe. I don't know whether Jason Tyndall's the same. I don't know anything about Jason Tyndall's sort of ability, so I can't comment really on his, credentials for that. But you would think that maybe Brooks would be looking at some of the big managers in the Premier League and thinking, I'd like to work under Klopp, or I'd like to work under Mourinho, or any of those kind of guys over there. So it really is down to the player. And as I say, double the money. If he's going to get double the money and do half the work that he's having to do at Bournemouth, then, a lot of players will take that.
I get what you said. I get what you're saying, Paul, to be honest with you. And I kind of compare Brooks to before his injury to like a Phil Foden. You know, could you imagine if someone like, although I would be absolutely devastated to lose him, could you imagine someone like Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola trying to develop David Brooks into actual, you know, I'm not saying he's not a star, but a world-class player. You know, you look at the likes of Phil Foden, probably going to start every game next season for Man City. So I think the comparison is there. I think Brooks, it's up to, you know, at the end of the day, it's up to Brooks to see what he wants to do. Hopefully he will give us another season because that will really help us. But if he does going to move on, then none of us can sit here and say he hasn't done well for us, because I think he's given what he can for AFC Bournemouth.
So Ben, obviously you've seen the tier list video that I've done with Tom Jordan. This is where we were at. So obviously, the top two, they're gone. Who else out of this do you think that could possibly be going?
I think that Josh King, Callum Wilson, I think they're the only main people that I could see going. Maybe Jefferson Lerma. I'm not sure how he would cope in the Championship. I don't know if the physicality will be to his level. I think maybe Lewis Cook could go back to Leeds if he wants to. David Brooks, obviously we've spoken about him. I think he could go, but I don't think he'll be treated the same way as if he would just be staying for another season and say proving himself and winning the Golden Boot or whatever for the Championship and getting 15 assists. I think if Brooks stays another season and he does really well in the Championship, I think, he'll be gone. I think Callum Wilson, Josh King, they'll be gone anyway. And maybe Lewis Cook, that's about it.
Okay, brilliant. So before we end, we're just going to talk about our best memories of Aaron Ramsdale. I mean, to be honest, I can't really think of anything after Project Restart because that's just been an awful time. I mean, the Leicester match does stick out as being very good, but like Morgan said, I've seen on AFCB TV where he's sort of running around the pitch. Paul, any sort of significant moments for Ramsdale, good or bad, that you look back on and think with a bit of fondness?
I think him joining us in the crowd has got to be right up there. Came into the North Stand wearing his hat, trying to sort of stay low profile so the media wouldn't get a shot of him, but sat down there and immediately was asked to chant and do songs, and he did start some chants and songs. And he was getting involved. He was standing up, he was clapping, he was shouting. He was just one of us at the time, and that's what you want to see from your players as well off the pitch, if you like. If he can't be on the pitch, he'll be there supporting them off the pitch, and that's what you get with Ramsdale. He gives 100%. He's very passionate and he's a great shot stopper. So very sad to see him go, but I definitely will remember the time where he came into the North Stand and helped us out cheering. Yeah,
and Ben, thoughts of Ramsdale, memories that will last for you?
I think it's just seeing whenever we've scored in a game, just seeing him like jump up the air and giving it a fist bump. And I think seeing that, say, every time we've brought a goal back for it to be a draw or we've scored a goal to win or whatever, and just seeing that from him not every game, but in most games, it's really nice to see someone being so loyal to the club and having that passion, and even though it was his first season properly playing for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Guys, thank you very much for your opinion today. Really appreciate it. At very short notice. It's going to be an interesting time ahead. Paul, thanks very much.
No problem. I'll speak to you later when we announce our assistant manager, probably.
Yeah, probably. Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much. And Morgan, appreciate your time.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much, Sam.
And Ben Phillips as well. Appreciate you being around.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries at all. That's Ben Phillips there. So what's the reaction over on Twitter? Interesting. Obviously, a lot of people talking about the finances. Maxim, he's owed money, but how much? Is the money going to go back to him? Is it going to be invested in facilities? Or Will JT get any of it? We don't know. We haven't had any incoming signings just yet, so we don't really know what's going on. Tommy Heffernan's Poodle says, the Rambo deal proves what we already knew. Every player in our squad is for sale and not for silly money either. Stuart Birch, every player has a price, but it needs to be right for the club. And you know what? It goes on. I'm seeing some older tweets come through as well. There's a Sheffield United fan and Cherries fan, Amy, who is probably not going to be supporting Bournemouth anymore because her beloved Aaron Ramsdale is back. Who knows? Stuart Reed says, I am sure AFCB Rob has got the numbers, but I feel the club wants or needs to generate 100 to 120 million. So King and Wilson will go, possibly Brooks if the money is right, Bego off the wage bill as well, Lerma's wages, possibly an issue. We don't know yet. It's an interesting time ahead for AFC Bournemouth, and I'm not going to talk about stuff I don't really know about, and finances is certainly one of them. But when you look at what's happening, we've sold two of our best players in the space of a week. You can't help but feel sad. Sheffield United, I think you've got a good signing for your money, and if he's played between the sticks regularly, as I'm sure he will be, I'm sure you'll have at least you've doubled your money by the end of the season, because you've got a player that's got heart, got passion, and is technically extremely good as well. Made a number of crucial saves for Bournemouth throughout the season. I remember for some of his, double saves early on. I remember against Brighton at home, we won 3-1, but he did a save in the first half that, kept us in the game. And it's, you kind of look back at individual moments like that and think, what a guy. But only one season, and he's left in high regard. A bit like Ian Bishop, you remember, back in the late 80s, one season wonder, went on to better things, and no one begrudged his move. But there it is. Aaron Ramsdale is about to leave AFC Bournemouth by the looks of it. £18.5 million. On Back of the Net, we'll, of course, try to keep you abreast of any changes that may be going on, and do remember to subscribe to the channel for more as well. Up the Cherries, and we'll see you in the next video, and God knows when that will be. Back of the Net!